Hello there, everybody. Welcome to another episode of I Call Top Bunk podcast. I'm your host, Fluff. I'm going to be once again without my co-host, ever so handsome Hans Hesberg. He is on the other side of the state, but in this episode, I get to sit down with my dear friend, Steph Carter from Gallows, who is now a big guy at Marshall Amplification, and I think he really personifies how to be successful in the music industry, but also to pivot and to kind of start in one place and find yourself successful in another area of the music industry. This is a really great conversation. He was literally in town for 24 hours and was gracious enough to sit down with me in Seattle at the podcasting space. Without further ado, here's Steph Carter from Gallows and Marshall Amplification. So this is called a microphone. You've probably never seen one ever.
I'm gonna ASMR it. Is that what it's called?
Steph, do you prefer Mr. Carter?
That sounds like my dad. We'll do Steph.
Steph from Gallows and Marshall Amplification. I guess it's okay. I tell people that you work at Marshall Amplification. You happen to have a rare day in Seattle from the UK. I thought I would pull you in to the podcasting studio. Welcome to I Call Top Bunk.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming.
I'm very glad to be here.
Dude, I was thinking on the car ride over here, I was like, I feel like I've known you for so long, but I followed you on Instagram way before you followed me. Just so we're all clear on this.
Thanks.
But I distinctly remember you hit me up about something. I don't remember what it was, or maybe you commented on something and I was like, holy shit. Steph Carter from fucking Gallows just followed me. And I was like, oh, blown away.
It's funny you say that, because when I hit the follow you button and I saw you followed me, I was like, holy shit.
I didn't
Fluff
ever assume.
Follows me.
Do you ever do this? So I always think of myself as just
a guy.
I'm a guitar nerd.
Yeah.
But I'm just a member on a very large football team of musicians that just are passionate about what they do, right?
I'm just me. Yep.
Right? And so I assumed that you probably had never seen anything of mine, never heard of. I hate even saying heard of me. That makes me feel really, really icky, because I was such a huge fan of what you have done musically. I think what you have done musically is a real contribution to the music space in general. And we'll get more to that in just a second, because especially at the time that Gallows was coming up, I think it was so against everything that was coming out at that time, because, heyday of metalcore.
Yeah.
We will get there, though. What I want to ask you, first of all, is do you remember a specific moment that made you go, I want to play guitar, when you were younger?
Yes.
What was it? Was it an album? Was it a movie? Was it a concert?
It was an album, and it was What's the Story, Morning Glory by Oasis.
Really?
Yeah.
And was it new at the time? This was at the time.
It was
1994 or 5.
I think I was a bit older when I first heard it. Probably 97-ish is where I
was
would
still
have
fresh.
Fresh.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
like I was, I would have just like early teens at that point. Like if I go back a little, the first gig I ever went to.
This is your first concert experience?
Yeah, why am I saying this? The first gig I ever went to was this like pop group in the UK called East 17.
Okay.
Like, it's like NSYNC type shit.
Okay.
Right. So imagine that.
Okay.
Think there. Right.
Which was quite huge over there.
Oh,
pretty early on.
Yeah. And
way before it caught on in America.
And for E17, they were like just boy band, like Take That, all of that.
Yeah,
they
yeah.
were all like the same time. So that I was like, I don't know. Maybe I was like 10 or something. I was young. And like my aunt took me and my brother, me and Frank went. with my two cousins. And I remember going to this thing and just being like, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. And then I very closely followed it up with a band called The Lighthouse Family.
The Lighthouse
They did that song
Family.
Lifted and Ocean Drive.
Oh, wow. What a deep cut.
So that they were my first two gigs I ever went to, and they were like quite quick succession with
Sure.
each other. And then I started like really getting into music where people play instruments.
So those two things really had a role in you kind of listening critically more to music as far as like what was going on?
I don't even necessarily think it was critically into music. It was the fact that when I was in that space, I was just like, I'm feeling things that I've never felt before.
Sure.
But I didn't know how to like process what I was feeling. I was just like, this is awesome. And this is something in my life wants to be in here. But where? I don't know. I don't know what it is. My dad's a saxophonist himself. So he plays saxophone. My mum's a dance teacher. So we've always had music around.
Oh, wow.
Right? Always, like my mum does Irish dancing. So it's not.
Whoa.
Yeah, that's my mum's history as an Irish dance teacher. So like we've got that music on one side. My dad loves Phil Collins. So we had that on the other.
Who doesn't love Phil Collins?
My wife.
Really?
Yeah, we'll talk about that later.
More coming, guys.
So we've had this really weird spectrum of music in our house. And, you know, I've got three brothers. We're all like very close, 2 years apart, each of us. Frank's the oldest. And then I'd always like steal his records.
Okay.
And I remember like after going to the shows and starting to go like, right, music's a thing. I'm interested. I got like my first CD player, like
Great.
boombox on the shelf, plug CDs into it. And the first CD I got was the Batman Forever soundtrack.
Kiss from a Rose?
Kiss from a Rose, Hold Me, Thrill Me, Kiss Me, Kill Me.
Dude.
Like,
that was a great soundtrack.
yeah, those two songs alone, like, I'm not the world's biggest U2 fan, but amazing song. But
yes.
Kiss from a Rose,
Banger.
that song, just the vocal harmonies in that song. So I started then moving into this like, okay, so there's more to life than generic pop band. What is going on with all of these sounds? And then it was, my brother got What's the Story, Morning Glory.
Wow.
And I stole it.
Yep.
And I obsessed over it. And then he got Adrenaline by the Deftones.
Wow.
And it was a mix of those two records.
Yes.
That was like, that's what I want to do. I never felt comfortable being a front man. Like I like to, I don't want to be the front.
I never wanted that.
But I like being the guy that gets to help the front, you know? So I was always like, I'll just play on the, like, I'll play one step behind you so I can help push you along.
So wait, so were you pretty quickly after discovering bands like Oasis and Deftones, were you automatically going from there to, I need to play in a band? Did that happen pretty fast?
Not even I want to play in a band. It was just like, first it was, I want to do music.
Okay.
Like, I'm not interested in drums. It wasn't a thing I was interested in.
Okay, so that was the thing you were gravitating, maybe listening to most.
Listening to, it was Oasis, where it was, because there's so many layers of guitars on those records. Dude. And like, even now I listen back to those records and I'm like, I didn't hear that. And like, you'd still pick stuff out of it. So I gravitated towards those sonic layers of guitars being something that was so interesting, because it was all about the counter melodies that I loved.
Yep.
Something that supports the lead vocal, but the guitar lines were the thing that I kept coming back. They're the things I'd sing.
Yeah.
I wouldn't sing the lyrics. I'd sing the guitar lines.
That's amazing. Yeah.
So that was my thing. Like, right, I know I want to be in music. This is the thing I'm moving towards. And then I remember doing like GCSE music in the UK. Like I was like 14, 15. You have to pick what courses you want to take in school to like specialize in. So I picked music, and that's where I first started like really getting into it, and like played in a band with my brother. Like at the time he was in a band and he was just like, we need a bass player. And I was like,
those guys get made fun of a lot.
I was like, really? I was like, but I don't have a bass. I have a guitar. And he was just like, well, let's get you a bass. And I was like, okay. So I played bass in this band for about 4 months before I was able to move into playing guitar.
I can't picture you playing bass.
I played it very badly, like a guitar player.
Wow.
Bass is not. Bass now, I've got a lot of appreciation for
I was
bass.
just about to say, the idea now sounds pretty awesome.
Yeah, and I have a lot of appreciation
Yeah.
because now I know some incredibly talented bass players.
As do I.
Who have shown me what being a bass player is. Mm-hmm. I always played it. Here's root note. Follow the root notes.
Right.
I'm going to use plectrum. I'm going to hit it really hard.
Right.
I'm going to play bass like a guitar player.
Right.
So I did that with him, and then through studying music in school, just a bunch of my friends, we were like the Outcast kids, and that was it. And it was
Great
like,
band
right,
name, by the way.
yeah. So mate, there you go.
We were the Outcast Kids.
This is this future project
See?
right there.
Yeah.
So and that was it. We kind of just fell into this like, you know, it's playtime at school. Everyone's out fucking playing football in the field. We're learning Deftones songs.
Amazing.
In a room like a third of the size of this, with the amps unbearably loud, with no hearing protection.
Adrenaline was recorded just a couple of miles from here.
No way.
Yeah.
That,
the first two albums.
So that is also,
I'll take you to Studio Litho someday.
that's also the reason I play Marshall.
Steph.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so my name is Stephen.
Yeah.
And Frank, my brother, when he one day was just like, Stephen doesn't work for me, I want to call you Steph.
And you're like, great.
And you spell it the same as Steph Carpenter from the Deftones, just Steph Carter from whatever we're doing now.
That's
so that
incredible.
was it. So that's like, yeah. So that name came to me when I was like 15 or something. He just one day was like, I want to call you Steph. I was like,
Wow.
okay. And then it's just stuck for the rest of my life now. Everyone knows me as Steph. But yeah,
That's
he's
incredible.
the reason that I started playing Marshall, was watching those early videos.
The Marshall Power Amp and the JMP1.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, I got to ask him when I had dinner with him once what the tone was on the first Deftones record, and he said it was an ADA1 preamp into a Marshall Power Amp.
No way.
Yeah. And then after, for that subsequent tour, he then got the JMP1. Yeah.
I've
then
never
everything
played
else.
a JMP one.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, we've got one at the studio.
Pretty cool.
I should dive into it. I have my number one is I've got a 76 JMP 50 watt 2204. That's
So do
my
I.
jam. That's my jam.
I have a 76 as well,
2204.
2204.
And then I've got a 77 2203.
I had mine returned completely to stock 6550s in the power section, the big bottle that it came with, because it's stamped 6550 on each of the sockets. It had been converted to EL34s.
So,
And I had it converted back to complete stock, and my guy even used vintage Marshall wire that came from the factory.
that's awesome.
Pretty cool.
And your is the same year as mine, which means it's got the different gain structure in it.
I don't know what it has in it, but it does not sound like other. It sounds so.
First year, 76 2204s.
Oh, was that a first year?
Yeah.
Oh, I was not aware of that.
First year Mark II Master Volume 76.
I was not aware of that.
And that first year in the 2204
I was not aware of that either.
was 87 gain structure, not 800 gain structure.
Oh,
So that's why
it's decidedly different.
they sound awesome, because it's not
So good.
it's not the same amp.
It's so good.
So yeah, there you go.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Okay. So you guys are reissuing. If I'm hearing you correctly, you guys are reissuing. No, I'm just kidding. But no, that was a very distinctive look, because we would all, as you know, even before I started playing guitar, I was checking out guitar rigs. I saw the Deftones 3 times on the Around the Fur tour, and I was always checking out rigs, and that was such a distinctive look. The EL34 dual stereo power amp, that was such a distinctive look. But at that time, literally every touring band on the planet was using the JMP1.
Yeah.
It was an incredibly successful product.
The technology beyond its years at the time.
Absolutely. I mean, I could name off a gazillion bands that were using that. But that's so interesting with the Deftones and the Adrenaline.
Yeah.
That's really incredible.
Yeah,
I wouldn't have guessed that.
There was something about that record. Bored was the simplest song in the world to play. It's just like my favorite song for years.
That was the thing I got from that band as well. I felt like, oh, I can do that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
As opposed
yeah.
to doing sweeping arpeggios or going the other way. I was just talking about this on the last episode. I apologize, listeners. I used to hide What's the Story Morning Glory underneath my my bed sheets when my friends came over, because if I was ashamed and I didn't know how to make it make sense, because my friends and I listened to Metallica and Pantera.
Yeah.
And I would get made fun of if I got caught listening to Oasis. But for me, I loved Oasis.
Yeah.
And the Definitely Maybe record first. I'm slightly older than you, I think. So that record, I was just like, this, I don't know what I love about this, but this really makes me feel a certain way, in the same way kind of like Pantera does, but from a different angle, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It makes you feel the thing.
Yeah.
But I hid it.
Yeah.
I used to hide that album when my friends came over. Anyway, it's funny what we get out of the music, because I didn't feel like I could also live up to the Oasis stuff, but the adrenaline stuff and the riffy stuff, I felt like I could do that.
Yeah, because even the Oasis stuff for me, like, I'm what I call a very mediocre guitar player.
I would know
myself.
You're not a mediocre guitar player. You are a great guitar player, dude.
Thank you.
Your riffs are really good.
I don't think so myself. And I always thought, I like playing rhythm guitar because I don't want to be the front.
Of course.
I
Same.
prefer to just lock into something and be able to enjoy moving around a stage.
It's the groove, right?
It's the groove, and it's like, when I play, I get excited and I jump around.
Sure you do.
And I don't want to have to do that while I'm trying to fucking play some lead stuff. Right. My brain doesn't work that way. So I'm not a drummer. I can do two things. Mm-hmm. The hands can go, start bringing the feet in, I'm out. So jumping around whilst playing lead licks, not for me.
So you play guitar, you start playing guitar in this band. Tell me about the formation of Gallows and deciding to be in a band with your brother.
Okay, so Frank and I played in this band called All Night Drive.
Okay.
That was like, band names are terrible.
Pretty bad.
Most band names are terrible. That one was particularly not great. So we played in this band together, and he brought me into the band the first time, and then the band kind of disbanded, did its thing. I started playing in like an instrumental band with some friends from school.
Okay.
I'll save the name of that one because it's just as terrible, so we won't. And then I went off to university.
Okay.
While I was at uni, I remember Frank called me one day and he was like, I'm going to send you something. I need you to listen to it because I think this is the thing. I was like, all right, cool. So he sent me like a phone, like a when I say a phone recorder, I'm talking like 2006.
Holding it up to the...
So like...
Okay.
It was...
pretty rough.
It was bad. And he sent me this thing and it just sounded kind of like white noise through the phone. And I was just like, this is the coolest thing ever. I didn't know what I was listening to because I couldn't make anything out. And I was like, dude, this is awesome. So Gallows as a band started before me. So I am a later addition to the band.
I did not know that.
So I joined the band after they'd been a band for like a year and a bit. They had done a record deal with a label called In at the Deep End Records in the UK. Okay. And it was a small independent. And the idea was they wanted to get the record out into the shops, and band was just like, this is fucking awesome. We're going to do this on the same label as a band from the UK called Senmore Paramedics. It's like a thrash metal band that dress up like zombies and all their songs are about zombies. It's rad. Like I'll find it. I'll send it to you. It's wicked. So Frank called me one day and was like, Paul, our guitar player, has left. I need you to fill in for 7 days. We need to go on tour and I would like you to do it. And I was like, I'm at uni. Okay, I can figure this out. When's the tour? Tour starts here. Okay, I'm going to come home a week before, finish for summer. I'll learn the songs. Let's do it. So I remember I came home. I went to where he was living. He was living above like a picture framing shop that my dad had. And he had like an art gallery above the top of the shop that he did art exhibitions in. And there was a giant room that was set up for Gallows rehearsals.
Cool.
So I remember coming back, Lags, the other guitar player, gave me one of those clip-on like MS2 Marshall things.
Yeah.
And he was like, I'm going to teach you the songs while we're walking around this house, because he's like, I need you to be able to move. That's the whole point of the band. And I was like, okay. So I didn't learn the songs because I didn't fucking know what I was doing. Like, if I'm being completely honest, I just tried my best to keep up. And he gave me some really good advice. And the advice was, as long as we start at the same time and stop at the same time, what happens in the middle isn't important. And that
he's not wrong.
That was the advice I was given in this band. It was like, as long as you look like you're moving, keep the energy up. Like,
that's hard to argue.
I'll always stick with that. Start at the same time, stop at the same time. What happens in the middle? Nah, it's not important. So I joined the band for a 7-day tour, and that was it. And I was supposed to be in to fill a gap because they had another guy lined up to take over. He couldn't do the tour because the band he was in at the time was doing a swap over. So we did this run of shows, and we got to the last night of the tour, and I was about to like go back up to uni, and they were just like, we don't want him to do this.
Keep hanging.
This works.
Okay.
We'll work around your degree.
Really?
Are you in? And I was like, I'll quit my degree. And Frank was like, you can't quit your degree. Mum will kill both of us. So
he doesn't want to be responsible.
He didn't want to be responsible, which is a good thing. Like, and I'm glad he didn't. Like, you know.
So did you finish?
I finished my degree.
Oh, my
degree is creative music technology. So I have a degree in creative music tech.
More on that later.
So I finished like my degree, and I had all my exams moved a month earlier than everyone else, because in the time period of joining the band, we'd signed the record deal with Warner Brothers, and then I had all of my exams moved a month early so I could go on tour.
Warner Brothers. Okay, wait. So Orchestra of Wolves
had been recorded, and I didn't play on. I sang on Orchestra of Wolves.
Oh, I did not know this. Well, that is currently distributed here in the States by Epitaph.
Yes.
I thought you were going to mention Epitaph, but then I'm not hearing Epitaph. I'm like, wait, what?
We did the deal with Warner, but there was a stipulation that it had to be Epitaph in the States for the first record.
So you didn't play my whole life is meaningless. What?
So I sang on Orchestra of Wolves. I didn't play on Orchestra of Wolves. So Lags had recorded all the guitars for Orchestra of Wolves because Paul, the other guitar player at the time, had left the band. So Lags did all the guitars on Wolves. I sang on it. So I sang on like 4 songs. They needed to finish some vocals. Frank wasn't able to do it. So they called me and were like, any chance you could do this? And I was like, yeah, sure.
And so you're around for the release of that record, and you do all the touring. You guys did touring. Is that when heavy touring started?
Heavy touring. So we did. Orchestra Wolves came out on In at the Deep End first. When I joined the band, we were like in the touring run of the first release for it. 2006 is when I joined the band. Okay. So we were in like the flows of like the first round of touring for the independent release of the record. And then as we moved forward, we very quickly picked up a booking agent. Mm-hmm. The booking agent introduced us to a manager. The manager then said, we need to shop labels now. So, and I joined in May of 2006. We'd signed the deal by April of 2007.
Whoa.
And in that time period, I joined the band for 7 days, and I ended up being in the band for like 7 years or something like that, 8 years. And in that time period, when I joined, we had 7 days of touring, and then we weren't sure what was going to come off it.
Sure.
We ended up meeting the booking agent who loved what we were doing and was like, okay, let's level up where you guys are now.
Of course.
So the first show she got us was supporting Papa Roach in London, which was a rad show. A place called the Astoria in London.
Oh, yeah.
So played the Astoria a bunch of times. My favorite venue. So we did the Papa Roach run of shows. Then we went on tour with Bullet for My Valentine and As I Lay Dying. So it's Bullet, As I Lay Dying, and Gallows opening,
Kind of weird, but I'm here for it.
which is like a weird
So
run.
I was just talking to John from the home team on the last episode, and we were talking about how it's not a record deal you need these days or ever. You need a good booking agent that actually believes in you.
The booking agent just opens the doors.
That's right.
And that was it. We needed someone to open the doors so that we could do what we needed to do.
Wow. That's pretty quick, man.
It was a really wild ride from like being in the band to play 7 shows to...
Yeah.
So my university in the UK was in a place called Scarborough, like north of England. I didn't drive. We lived just outside of London. So I'd be at home in the UK, in Hemel Hempstead, where we lived, on a weekend. And on a Sunday night, I would get the last train to Scarborough for my 8 a.m. lecture, to then get a train home on Monday to play a show, to get the first train back on a Tuesday for my afternoon lecture, to get a train home again, to then play shows for the rest of the week.
You were going for it.
I had to put everything into it.
You have to.
Because I was like, this is why I'm at uni. I'm at uni to do this shit.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to do it. And I'm going to enjoy doing it and have the best time while I'm doing it. So that was it. That last year, I spent more time probably on trains than I did living at my house up in Scarborough.
But at this point, you're still going to university. And you're not really thinking about, you're not sitting there going, I'm going to sign a major label record deal.
Fuck no.
And then you're not thinking about any of that stuff.
No,
You're just like, this band thing's cool.
I was like, hopefully out of this, I get to go to Europe to play some gigs. We were playing
Right.
shows in the UK. And then it came around. It was just like, we want you guys to go to South by Southwest. And we were like,
America?
someone's going to take us to Texas? I'm going to go to America to play shows. This is awesome. So we did. We ended up doing South by.
Where did you play in Texas?
Emos.
I was just about to say, was it Emos?
We did the first time we went.
Oh my God. Was that your first gig in America?
First gig in America was, Texas.
Was Emos?
Yeah, South by. It was crazy.
Legendary venue.
It was an awesome venue.
Yeah.
Like one of the best.
Yes.
We played some great shows at Emos over the years. Like some really cool shows. We did a show with Bad Brains there.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Whoa.
So
That's sick.
yeah, it
So you get to go to America and you're like, we've made it. This is cool.
went to America, thought we made it,
Yeah.
ended up meeting like the dudes from Newfound Glory, going on tour with Newfound Glory, played a show with Mastodon. So
What?
let's say we played a show with Mastodon. We played first
Of 12.
in like an all-day festival.
Sure. I mean, I say I played with Iron Maiden, but it's that day at Download. you know?
Yeah. I mean,
I'm on the poster.
yeah, exactly.
Hey.
So we were like, you guys are playing a show with Mastodon. We're like, this is the best thing ever. No one told us there was a 12-hour difference between when we played and when Mastodon played.
Oh.
So we ended up going to play this show in this park in Austin. And we play at 12 o'clock. So we're first band on. So we get to the park at like 11 and we're like, there's a kids festival happening right now.
What?
And up until 12 was a festival for kids. So we played after a band called the Jelly Tots.
Fuck off. Really?
Yeah. And it was just a field full of like mums, dads, and their babies with like pram pushchairs. So we're setting up, turn my amp on. I've got Austin Taxi Driver radio picking up through my amp the whole way through the show. So every time I stop playing, you're just hearing like wherever the person's being called to for a thing. I'm like, this is insane. While
Hey
we're setting
kids,
up.
this next one's called In the Belly of a Shark.
Played the first note and you just saw all of these people just like cup their kids' ears and just be like, and then they very quickly pack their stuff up. So our whole show was just a line of people
packing up.
in pushchairs trying to get out of this park.
Incredible.
Yeah, and then
Were you yet jumping into the crowd and playing your set with the
No,
circle pit
that-
around
that
you? Okay,
one-
we'll get there. We'll get there.
for that show specifically, my cables weren't long enough to get me out into the crowd.
Okay, so you sign a deal with Warner,
Yeah, so
and now you're entering the Great Britain tour cycle, or not tour cycle, album cycle, and now you guys got to think about, now you're are you primarily, like, how does writing go? Because now you're in the band, you weren't writing with Orchestra of Wolves, right?
No, for Wolves, I didn't write on Wolves. What I did was, when we did the re-release for Warner Brothers, we went into the studio and we recorded like 4 new songs to go on it. So I was part of the writing team from the minute I joined the band. I was from the minute they were like, "You're in," I was part of the writing team from there on. So I wrote quite a bit of Great Britain. That's where I came into my own from a writing point of view.
And the reason why I wanted to have you on this podcast is because all I wanted is just talk about Great Britain and
that's good.
The brilliance of that album. And
I love that album.
You have been so gracious. Every time we hang out, I ask you about Great Britain, and I ask you nerdy Gallows questions, and the guitar tones, and the Randy Rhoads Marshall you're using in the Misery video.
So that 79 super bass is what that was.
Right.
Original.
I did this last time too. I thought it was Randy Rhoads and went,
Original 79 super bass that I traded in the most amazing guitar shop in the UK. When you're over next, I'm going to take you to this place.
Please.
It's like Aladdin's cave. It's the craziest spot in the world. But original 79 super bass is what it was, that I got from Marshall. Joel was looking after me from an amps point of view, and I was buying a lot of amps, and one day he called me and was like, "Someone's just had this in. It's a 79 full stack, £900. Are you interested?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'll buy it straight away." So I bought that with like 4 additional cabs, and I bought a purple plexi that was made for the Animals.
Amazing.
That they didn't want, so I managed to get it for cheap. So I ended up buying
loads of amps.
Gave Joel lots of money that day.
Wow.
I had a great collection of cabinets and amps.
Okay, so
before Warner Brothers, I was on my way into London to sign a record deal with Sony the day I signed with Warner Brothers.
Wait. So you guys were like, cool, we're going to sign a deal, and it's going to be with Sony.
We were between Warner and Sony.
Okay.
The whole way through.
There was, if I remember correctly, correct me if I'm wrong, there was kind of a bidding war with you guys, because as I remember from the outside looking in, Orchestra of Wolves was all of a sudden everywhere, and it was like being played in like Vans shoe stores and stuff, and like In the Belly of the Shark specifically was everywhere.
Yeah.
And you guys were pretty hot shit.
Yeah, we were like
all of a sudden.
Yeah, it kind of came out of nowhere. And it was like out of nowhere, it was like, this band are really important. And I struggle with it, if I'm going to be completely honest, because I'm not used to people coming up to me and being like, "Well, you're that guy."
So if I may, the reason why I think that is correct is because at that time it was predominantly the same recycled metalcore stuff, because metalcore was deep in that stuff. And I saw you guys, so I had never heard of you guys, and saw you guys at Warped Tour 2009. And I was an old punk rock guy. I came up on the Fat Wreck 90s, mid 90s Fat Wreck Epitaph stuff, right? And some of the older 70s, obvious stuff, Sex Pistols, Clash, all that kind of stuff, right? But for me, your guys' attitude and your music was so far removed from what was actually popping off at that time in the Warped Tour community, especially. I had seen A Day to Remember.
Yeah.
And Day to Remember ends. I am literally walking away with a hot dog, and I am mid-chew, and then the feedback comes, and I'm pretty sure you guys immediately you jump onto the grounds.
Yep.
You jump the barrier. You guys all have wireless by this point, and I spit my hot dog out, and I'm like, what the fuck is this? And a pit is playing and circling you as you guys are playing your set, but you don't do it for a song.
It was the whole thing.
You played the whole set on the muddy ground where the crowd was.
Yeah.
That was unfucking believable. And I thought, no one else is doing this.
Yeah, as a thing, we was like, don't put anyone on a pedestal.
Right.
We're you, you're us. This works for all of us doing it together.
It was the most punk rock thing I'd ever seen in my entire life, but it was so real and genuine. It did not come from a place of, we're going to be this thing. It was not that at all.
No, it was like, I don't know, for us, stages are small. We move around a lot. Where's the bigger place?
Right.
Down there.
Right.
Because a lot of the time there was more space down there because it wasn't full.
A killer live band. You guys were playing your ass off.
Yeah, I feel comfortable to say we could have gone up against anyone and held our own.
Though. Like that was, and I'd never heard you before. You guys get done with the set. I make my way all the way down. I've told you this story, but I'm going to tell everyone because I still cringe at the thought of this. I get to your merch booth and you are selling shirts, and you had a Great Britain shirt, and the cover, the album artwork, you can't really tell on the cover, on the CD cover itself, but on the shirt, it had green print that made it look like it was in smoke, but it was very, very faint. And I said, oh, I think there's something on the shirt. And you were folding shirts, and you turn to me and you go, it's part of the shirt, mate. And I go, sorry, I'm an idiot. And I walk off. That was our interaction.
Is that what I sound like when I talk?
No, that's my brummy. No, you didn't sound like, but you were pretty like, that's part of the shirt, dumb shit. And I was like, oh fuck, he's right.
Yeah,
you were freshly played, like, so you were sweaty,
dripping.
you were dripping.
Yeah, that was it. We were always like, finish playing, straight to the merch booth, because if anyone's going to come, we can at least be there to.
And you were.
Tell them
I bought a shirt.
Tell them that the shirts are as they should be.
Yeah. There's something on the shirt. No. But it had a massive impact later for me on what I did with Dragged Under, and my attitude on stage. I still always thought about that impact and how I felt seeing you guys live for the first time.
That means a lot.
To bring that full circle, like, I think all of the praise was absolutely warranted at that time. But going into Great Britain, did you guys just you guys were en route to go and sign when you signed physical papers?
En route to sign physical papers with Sony. There was a bidding war between Sony and Warner Brothers. That's who we kind of narrowed it down to. And we were going in to sign with Sony. It was a guy called Mike Smith was the guy there. He's the guy behind the Arctic Monkeys.
Oh wow.
So we were en route to sign with Mike.
Everyone's
and Sony.
getting their Sony hats on and their shirts. Team Sony.
And like our manager at the time phoned. Frank and I were in a taxi. We were from my parents' house going in, and we just got a phone call and was like, tell the driver to change location, meet us at this pub. Warner Brothers have just offered you £1 million. And we were like, can you take us to the pub instead? And we went and sat there, and he was like, Warner came through.
$1 million.
And they gave a phone call and they said, what do we need to get the band on board? And he went, give them $1 million, 500 grand per record.
Oh, you're taking the piss.
Wolves was already recorded.
Oh, okay.
So Wolves was done. So we had that money there.
So that's paid for. They just cashed you out.
We just used it to tour. And then we had 500 grand to make Great Britain. So we had $1 million for the deal. And then the publishing was not far off that.
Right.
All of the money just circled straight back into touring and making the next record. Great Britain cost a lot of money to make.
Did it have to cost a lot of money?
No. Fucking like, not when you know how we finished the fucking thing. Yeah. So we recorded, Great Britain was recorded in a studio called Rack Studios, down the road from Abbey Road.
Okay.
Mickey Most's studio. Michael Jackson recorded there.
Wow.
Like, when you walk in, it's just gold discs everywhere, and it's like there's some serious shit in the studio.
Did you write in the studio, or did you have these songs pretty much done and then you booked the studio time?
We pre-written the record.
Okay.
We did Orchestra of Wolves touring for like nearly 2 years. We toured as much as we possibly could off that record.
Yeah, because Great Britain was what, 2009?
Great Britain was 2009.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So we'd done all of the work in touring. Mm-hmm. We then went into a rehearsal spot local to where we were in Watford, and we locked ourselves away for just a couple of months.
Road record.
And we just worked every day, and we did, I think we wrote 11 songs and we delivered 11 songs, and 11 songs made the record.
All killer, no filler.
That we were just like, let's just do it, get it done. And we went to a meeting with Warner, and they were like, you guys are going to be the next Green Day. And we delivered Great Britain.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Why would they say that? That labels are so tone deaf. That's
we
insane to me.
The thing for me about the music industry that I always find weird is when something's big, every label signs 50 of those in the hope that one of them has enough. Yeah, one of them has enough traction to generate the return. Paramore was prime example in that mid 2000s.
Yes,
they were the band, and then there were a million not as good Paramores that came out around the same time. For us, when we did it, they were like, there's a lot of money invested into the band here. You know, it was the Great Rock and Roll Swindle Part 2. That's why we got referred to Sex Pistols a lot, solely because of the amount of money we did and the fact that when we played, we just fucking went for it. So we had this meeting with the label, and they're like, you know, you guys are going to be the next Green Day. We've got this. And we were just like, dude,
that's so incoherent.
So we kind of went and wrote the heaviest record we could have written, and Great Britain's what came out of it.
Wow.
So we did the writing for it in 2008. We then found our producer. We worked with Garth Richardson, who did the first Rage Against the Machine record. We met loads of people.
L7 Bricks Are Heavy, one of my favorites of his.
He's a great producer.
Okay, was your experience awesome?
It was hard. Like, I recorded guitars for 10 weeks.
Oh my God. And this was no reamping. This was no, like, the amps are plugged in. You are going for it.
We did the record
for real.
So the record was done to tape.
I didn't know you used tape on that.
So drums were all tracked live to tape. So every time our drummer made a mistake, the whole band played the whole song again.
Bro.
And it was funny because, like, at the time, Lee had a really massive kit. And Garth's very, like,
stripped down
the kit. Yeah. So I remember him going in and just saying to Lee, if you hit something, I'm just going to come and take it away from you. And he did. He just took bits away of the drum kit and was just like, nope, that's it. That's what
fuck off, you don't get it anymore.
Yeah. And from an amps point of view, we just had a fucking giant wall of amps. We were stood in front of them for ages, just going, playing the take again and again. And then we locked that down. Stu did bass in a couple of days, and then Lags and I did guitars, and we recorded. It's like we did fucking Oasis on it. We recorded so many layers. Everything with everything with Les Paul, everything with a Telly, everything with a 335. Lags did the same thing with a different set of amps and different set of guitars. Then I recorded all of the riffs again with a Les Paul. Then I recorded all of the riffs again with a baritone. Lags did a similar thing. Then I picked my guitar. What's the one you want to use? It was my 73 Black Beauty. That's my baby. And he was like, right, what's the first chord in this song? I was like, and I'm just barring this. He's like, okay, hold pressure. Every time that note happens in the song, play it, and I'm going to record it. I recorded the whole record note at a time as well. It was the most miserable recording experience I've ever had in my entire life.
I listened to it on the way up here to pick you up as a refresher. It sounds extremely thick. The guitar tones, I wouldn't necessarily assume they were as layered as you're describing, because there's just so much. Well, I guess I would in that way, of the thickness. It's hard to describe the amount of thickness but clarity you guys got.
That's a really good way to look at it. You can turn that record up as loud as you want, and it never kind of
it doesn't phase
distort
out
itself. No, the power just gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's perfectly in tune.
I was going to ask, were there tuning problems? No,
I had a Les Paul, and I had the 68 gauge string as my low E.
Oh my God.
And I was a 14 on my high E. It was just a custom set we put together. It was the most horrendous thing to play.
And then you had wrist surgery right after.
Ever. And I played guitar for like 9-10 weeks.
Do you remember what amps you used for that record?
Yeah, loads.
Were you layering and recording multiples at the same time, or would you use primarily one for one go and another for another go?
I had a wall of amps. Lags had a different wall of amps, and then they all came down to like stereo tracks for both of us.
And in these kinds of situations where you're spending weeks tracking guitar, is everyone else just at home and just fucking off? Like, does Frank just say, call me when it's time to cut vocals?
So he was around the whole time. Everyone kind of bounced in and out a little bit.
Of course.
I spent most of the recording there because it was what I studied for uni, and I was like, I've learned more doing this than I have in 3 years of being in a degree. Because
this is the real shit.
This is the guy.
Yeah.
This is all the records I've loved.
Yes.
This fucking guy.
Yes.
So once we finished like tracking the most horrendous experience of my life, very quick circle back, Laney clip. That was part of my thing. Garth's got an old like 59 from the 60s that's bright orange. That was a big part of my rig. An SLO.
SLO? Really?
Yeah.
One of my favorite amps of all time.
That was part of my amp rig for it. And then I had a 2210 800.
Oh.
And then I had my JMP with my 2204. All of that together through 8 cabs.
Holy phasing issues, Batman.
It was pretty wild.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, it was a lot. But
okay.
we did the recording, got to vocals.
Okay.
And Frank started going, and he'd just lost his voice entirely. So
like technique, emotional, mental.
I don't. To be honest, I don't fully know what it was. I know for him at the time, he really struggled to be in a band of that fame. It was something that you can't prepare for that shit.
Well, it's a weird thing. So no one really thinks about the fact that, like, you know, you're going to write these songs, and especially as a lyricist or vocalist, like, you're going to write your own personal things and experiences and put these into these songs. Now all of a sudden you're generating, for example, I mean, I can't help but think like $1 million, like that would fuck me up just even before anything is recorded or out. Like, wait, what? So I just generated all this income based on the thing that I just wrote down on a piece of paper for my lyrics. You know what I mean?
For a vocalist, you're your instrument. Right. I can blame it on the guitar.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Natural instrument, right?
Yeah, it's you. So we couldn't record, we couldn't finish the record there. So in the end, we'd spent all this money on the record. We recorded like a fucking part of the London Philharmonic Orchestra at Air Studios on the record. We recorded a piano at Abbey Road Studio 2 because we could.
I mean, why not?
Right.
What else are you going to spend all that money on?
Had a Mellotron into the studio so I could play a Mellotron on Queensbury Rules. So there's a Mellotron in there. That was horrible to play. And then we end up going like, right, we need to do vocals. Mm-hmm. Garth needs to go back to Canada. I was like, what do we do? So they were like, you studied music? And I was like, yep. So the label bought a Pro Tools rig. Had it sent to my house. Well, my mum's house. So Frank and I drilled a hole through the wall from my bedroom to his bedroom. My room became the control room. His room became the live room. And over 2 months, we recorded and produced all the vocals for Great Britain at my mum's house in Hemel Hempstead. After spending like so much money doing it in all these fancy places in London, the vocals were just done with the two of us at home.
Oh my God.
So that's how that record was finished. And the vocal delivery on that record there's so much venom.
Yeah, that's a great word to use.
In it. There's so much venom in his delivery.
Right.
Because it was a real hard thing to get that record finished.
Kind of a make or break moment, right?
And he was like living in New York at the time, so we had a window of time to get it done before he was going back. So we're like, we've got this window, we've got to get it done.
Wow.
So yeah, it was intense.
Who mixed the record?
Andy Wallace.
Wait, what? One of the greatest to ever do it?
Yeah, and Howie Weinberg mastered.
No wonder I love it.
Yeah.
Oh, Andy Wallace is a mixing hero of mine.
Yeah, like us too. When
everyone would say, never mind, rightfully so. However, for me, it was Bad Religion, Stranger Than Fiction.
Yeah.
Oh.
If you just take half an hour to just go look at his discography.
Yeah, dude.
Every record you like,
Jeff Buckley?
every record you like, he's been on it.
Andy Wallace mixed Great Britain?
Yeah.
What? Oh, that's incredible. I did not know this.
Garth produced it. Andy mixed it. Howie mastered it.
What? Wow.
That's why it cost us so much fucking money to make that record.
Bro. Yeah. You get it done.
Get it
comes
done.
back. Do you remember the first time you actually sat and listened to it after it was all done, finished, and turned in?
Yeah, I do. I remember listening to the mixes from Andy as well, because Frank was in New York with Garth and Andy. They were doing mixes and then sending them to us in the UK, and then I was collating feedback from myself, Lags, Stu, and Lee to then go back to Andy and be like,
Are you giving mix notes?
here's what we think of your mix.
Amazing. Are you giving him many notes, or was it, or what we got close to what he had?
Songs 1, 2, and 3, there was a bit of back and forth. By that, it was rinse and repeat. He had it done. But like,
wow.
I remember the first set of mix notes we sent back to him was like, it's really quiet. And they were like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, it's really quiet. Surely this isn't where we needed to be here. And they were like, it's fine.
What's
not
not mastered?
But what they did is there was something that had happened on the delivery to the files that came to us.
Oh, really?
Where it was like 15 dB under where it should have been.
Oh, like really
so it was
quiet.
really quiet. So it wasn't even a master thing. It was like
something's wrong.
Yeah. So once we got that sorted, then there was a little bit of balancing. We then got to the point where it was like he was able to knock out mixes in, like pull a track up, and within an hour or so we'd have a mix and it would be like done.
So he basically takes your temperature with the first couple of songs and goes, cool,
gets it right,
got it,
gets
know what
it
you're
right,
going
and then it's
for.
just bang, bang,
Leave me
bang,
alone,
bang,
let
bang.
me cook.
100%.
Wow.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
I remember listening to it back that first time and just sitting there going, oh, I don't think people are ready for this. Especially for what we'd done. You know,
It's so drastically different.
jangly riffs,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
weird time signatures on things,
Right.
like discordant is what orchestra was, and then Grey Britain's like a modern punk metal record.
Well,
almost.
the thing that was really striking for me, I remember going, ooh, you're saying things lyrically.
Oh, yeah.
Like, when it burns down, we'll be tried for treason.
Yeah.
Like, bro, what are you doing? Like,
Yeah.
holy shit, this is some Sex Pistols 1978 shit.
Yeah, in England at that time, the country had just fallen apart.
Right.
And in all honesty, it's just got worse since the record. The record's probably more prominent now than it was then for where the country is.
Yeah.
Knife crime was a huge problem in England. That's what the song Queensberry Rules is about. Like a real problem, like kids getting killed on the streets, like real problem. So we wanted to do a record that was probably the closest thing to like a concept record that we could. All the videos tie into each other. There was a huge art direction for it. Originally, we wanted to do videos for all 12 and turn it into a film. In the end, I think the 4 videos we did do, it's like a 25-minute
Is that why the
thing.
deluxe version has Grey Britain parts 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or whatever they are?
Yeah, so we've done it in that way. So it's like the acts of each part of it.
So good.
So we kind of, my brother's a fucking genius. This is his focus to get it to that point.
Okay.
He was the creative mastermind behind the concept for all of it. And what was delivered at the end, I remember listening to it, and when we did the first playback in London, we did a cinema thing where we showed the film in a cinema. We rented a cinema, had fans come, and I just remember being like, yeah, I don't know if people are going to be ready for this, but then also I don't know if people are going to like this because it was so different.
What was your perception of how it was received when it does finally come out?
Fucking blew all of my expectations out of the water.
Yeah, okay, that would be mine as well.
People were just like, this is rad. They were like, this band, not only are they saying something, not only can they play their instruments well,
yeah,
but this record is leaps and bounds. I remember like a friend coming to me after a little while back and was like, yeah, I was at a festival and I spoke to Fat Mike about Gallows. We had a big conversation about it, and I was like, oh, that's cool. And he was like, yeah, his feedback was they should have never released Grey Britain because they were never going to top that record. And I was like, yeah, he's, you know,
I mean, that was
something in there.
That was your Dark Side of the Moon.
Yeah, it
right? Like there's a lot of parallels between like an album like that, believe it or not, subject wise and culturally.
It was a record beyond the band at that time.
Yeah, it's more than the sum of its parts, right?
Yeah, definitely.
My recollection of the time was you guys went on tour for what seemed like forever.
Yep.
For that album.
Yep.
Is that your recollection as well?
Yep.
Like you guys were literally announcing tours. A Day to Remember were here recently, and around the same time when the Homesick came out, their recollection was being on tour forever as well.
Yeah, it like there was something about that time.
Yes, you guys were you were literally
grinding.
You go from Warped Tour to all of a sudden you're doing the European Warped Tour or whatever. Then you're going down to Australia, and then you're, by the time a year has passed, so you're back in America again. And like it was crazy.
We spent so much time out here.
You did.
Like a lot of time out here doing our own headline runs, supporting Bad Religion, doing Warped Tour, going back and doing South by Southwest again. We were like, let's spend all of the money we got from the record deal touring America, which is pretty much what we did.
So in case you guys at home don't really know how any of this works, so when you're a band and you're signed and you go on tour, you basically get a recording, not a recording budget, but they essentially bought your first record, and then they signed you for the second record. You get this purse of money. That's up to you to then spend that money to utilize to forward your band. You don't get more money for things like touring. So
we had tour support on top. So we had a tour support
which
allowance
is extremely uncommon.
Yeah. So at the time, and also the deal we had with Warner was just a straight record deal. It wasn't 360. It was just an old school, straight up record deal.
Great.
So we had tour support on top.
They're not taking any of your merch cuts. Nothing like that.
No merch cuts, no live, just record sales.
So you were able to stay in the States and tour shitloads.
We did Warped Tour in a bus on our own. Twice.
Damn, dude. No one was doing that.
Yeah, that's how we were able to do it. Like, there's a lot of friction in the band as well. Like, you know,
I think you could sense that though, but that's like, you know, another band I often think about when I think of like friction is again Oasis, obviously, but like Guns N' Roses, right?
Yeah,
like that's the thing that makes them great.
Yeah, and I think at the time we were all very different people, all separately dealing with the fact that this thing that we did was somehow our job now.
Yeah, make it make sense.
Yeah, and it doesn't make sense.
It doesn't.
I was the youngest at the time. I signed the record, they were 21.
Oh my God.
And I didn't fucking know what to do with myself at that time.
No.
And then trying to tour and like trying to go for dinner with my brother and people coming up and being like, can we take our picture with you? And we're like, we can't even fucking go for dinner together on our own anymore. It was a weird environment to be in. So there was a lot of tension in the band. Frank and I didn't drink, take drugs. We're both straight edge at the time. The rest of the band did. So that was a weird dynamic at times as well.
Sure.
And then you go on stage and you just unleash everything you're feeling for half an hour. And for that half an hour, you're in this weird euphoric state where nothing else really fucking matters. And then it finishes and then there's a huge come down afterwards. And then you're back into reality. And then you're like, we're trying to make this work, but we know there's some tensions around. And that's what ultimately led to kind of Frank deciding to move away from the band. And you said the Oasis part of it.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about the dynamic of
being in a band with your brother?
Being in a band with your brother. And I would find that to be, there's a lot of positives in my mind, at least with my brother. The homesick thing of being gone for months at a time, but you do still have your family member, but also you still have your family member with you for 3 straight months while on tour.
Yeah, like when it was bad, it was bad.
Sure.
And we had some really bad times, but we also I traveled the world with 2 of my brothers.
Right.
Because we brought my younger brother, Johnny. He came on tour and filmed everything for us.
Oh, that's amazing.
So we just covered all of his flights and stuff.
Of course.
He came on tour and then was a sixth member of the band, just filmed everything. And then occasionally we'd be able to bring my youngest brother out and he'd be on the bus with us for some time around the States as well. So Rick would be on tour with us as well. So there was points where I had all three of my brothers on tour with me.
It's incredible.
And that was amazing. I got to experience things I've never experienced.
And watch them experience those things as
I
well.
remember we Warped Tour 2009. We were doing the, like, where was it? The New York era. And I remember we were in New York, we were doing the show. My youngest brother was on the road with us as well. And I remember, like, me and Frank were there and my mum was like, whatever you do, don't lose your brother. Well, okay, cool. Turn around, like, where the fuck has he gone? Like, straight up. And we were both just there, like, where the fuck is Rick?
Mom's going to kill us.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden, he comes around the corner with Beck from Glassjaw.
Fuck off.
And was just like, this is Beck. We're going to go and get donuts together. Do you want to come? So we just jumped in the car with Beck to go and get donuts. And I just remember sitting in this thing going, this is fucking weird.
Yeah, dude.
This is my life. That's happened a number of times. That's one of them. And the other one, we played with Amy Winehouse at South by.
What?
And that was the other weird.
Bro, that's pretty cool.
So we did like a old school South by, Levi's Fader Fort.
Yeah.
So we did a Levi's Fader Fort show, and it was Jamie T, who was a big UK thing at the time, Gallows, full band, and then Amy Winehouse and her guitar player.
What the fuck?
Yeah, that might be the weirdest thing I've ever done, where I was just like, this is mental. And then we did Dates of Rage Against the Machine. That was pretty fucking weird as well.
Whoa.
But the Amy Winehouse one, I remember being there and just like, this is not normal.
Do you have a personal favorite show or tour that when you think about, like, man, we really did great that day? Like, as far as being proud of the band as a whole, as whether that's performance or where you're at that time?
Yeah, there's definitely a couple. I think the first time we played with Rage, we played in a football stadium in Italy. It was the first time we'd played in a stadium. And I remember that being like a moment where we were like, is
this real life?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the last big London headline show we did for the Great Britain tour, was the longest set. We were playing like an hour and 35 minutes or something.
My
it was
God,
long.
Please shoot me. No
yeah,
way.
It was a long show. And we played in a place called the Kentish Town Forum. And everything was just on point.
Was this the DVD, the live show?
It might be, yeah.
Really good.
Yeah. So yeah, it was.
Or was that? Maybe I'm thinking of the Brixton show or whatever that was.
It would have been the Kentish Town.
Okay.
Sure, it would have been Kentish Town.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, they were like the one. We did one show in the Electric Ballroom in Camden for a Great Britain tour, where we had the string quartet play the live parts for that as well. We just did Great Britain from start to finish. That was really cool. Those were moments where we were just locked in.
Yeah.
And it was exactly as it should be. But also we were playing Warped Tour 11 o'clock in the morning in fucking arse end of nowhere in, I don't know, a car park in the desert. And sometimes it just works.
Right. You mentioned, when Frank leaves the band, is that a phone call from him to you? Is that a band meeting? Does management tell you guys? How does that, do you see it coming?
No, we had some big talks about him leaving the band at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And he went back we've been writing demos for album 3, which I've got somewhere. I'll find them and send them to you. We were writing demos for album 3, and we'd finished doing vocals one day, and then he went back to New York. And I remember he just got back to New York and called me and just went, I'm out.
Wow.
And I was like, what do you mean? This isn't how we talked about this.
Right.
And he was just like, I can't do it anymore. I was like, okay, what do we do? So we did a bunch of shows, and that was a really difficult part of the band, because he didn't want to do the band anymore. We were still trying to figure out what the rest of us were going to do. Him and I were at odds with each other. And that was really uncomfortable to do. Like, more than anything, it's uncomfortable because I'm like watching my brother really struggle and be really uncomfortable and be like, I don't want fucking this for him. Like, the last thing I ever want is to see him uncomfortable.
Of course. Like,
it's not a good place to be. When he left the band, he went on to do the Pure Love stuff.
Yep.
With Jim from Hope Conspiracy. And he was in such a different place and different person when he was doing that. So at the time, you could never quite see it and go, this was the right thing. Looking back on it now, I'm like, this was 100% the thing he needed to do for his own like health.
What a random side note. I just saw the Hope Conspiracy like 3 days ago.
How was it?
It was incredible.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
And I will admit, I didn't really listen to them much back in the day. They weren't really my thing. My better half, Ashley, brought me to the show because they were playing like a mile from my house. She was like,
let's go.
We have to go. And it was incredible.
A great band.
They fucking brought it.
Yeah.
They brought it. I was really impressed.
Yeah. They're a fucking great band.
So your brother leaves. Do you see him? I mean, what is that first, obviously you're not enemies or anything like that, but like, obviously you're going to see him at like, you know, Christmas or something at some point and, you know, hey, how's it going?
we were good. We were not good. We were good. We were not good.
Sure.
It was tough, man. It was really tough for everyone at
ups
the
and
time.
Downs.
Real bad ups and downs.
Because Gallows did not end there.
No, Gallows didn't end there. I went on to do an EP and another album with Wade McNeil from Alexis on Fire as the vocalist.
Yeah. Alexis on Fires.
So yeah, we got Wade in. We did those extra two things. And then at that point, that was where I then decided,
okay,
this for me isn't the same. And I think it was a couple of years on top of being like, I was doing this with my brother.
That's what made it. That's what made it so special, right? Like that was, you take that away.
Yeah, and I really struggled with it. And I was like, oh man, it's really hard to not do this with my family anymore. I've just spent the last 8 years or so traveling the world with my family to now feeling like I'm on the fucking outside of this, going like,
now you're alone.
This doesn't feel good anymore.
Okay, so I would love to transition into, I'll connect the dots for me of, you know, Gallows stops.
Yeah.
What do you find yourself at home going, the fuck do I do now?
So I was in America with my now wife.
Who's awesome.
She's the best. She's literally the best person on the planet. I was living with her. She was at uni. And I remember...
You were living in America.
I was living with her in America, yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize.
Yeah, like I'd finished touring and I was like, I'm just not going to go home. I've got a visa. I can be here as long as I want to be here for.
Sure.
So, fuck it. Let's go.
And Frank's in New York.
Frank's in New York.
Was he tattooing? Was that what he was doing? What was he doing?
He was doing Pure Love stuff.
Okay.
So he was doing that in New York, and then he was bouncing across between New York and the UK because Jimmy was in New York as well. So it was easy for them to do all the writing. And I think they had Ben from Converge play drums on the first demo stuff for it.
Yeah.
I think they were trying to get him in the band.
Okay.
But it didn't quite work out. So
you're just hanging out.
I was just hanging out, like just writing music. And then one day I just woke up one morning and just sent an email to the band and was like, I'm out. This is my 6-month notice period. Wow. And then G woke up and I was like, I just quit the band. She was like, I beg your pardon. She was like, are you? I was like, yeah, I'm out.
Is that a weird conversation? I'm gonna phrase this as best I can because I can relate to. The band tour life was your entire life, I assume, when you met G.
We met.
She didn't know you in any different light.
She knew me as guitar player in Gallows.
So I met my wonderful better half, Ashley. Shout out to Ashley. And I was that guy. I was the YouTubing, touring, and she would be excited because she would get to watch my dogs, and they loved her, and it worked great.
Yeah.
And then it comes time to kind of stop doing that, and then you're like, hey, so I'm here now.
Yeah, this is me.
When I quit, we were 6 years into a relationship.
We were 1 and a bit.
Okay.
And I remember we had started writing or talking about writing songs together, me and G as well, because I always wanted to do something different. I wanted to do something that was more of like the indie Americana-y type rock thing.
Okay.
So we started working on some bits like that, and I remember just saying to her, like, I'm out, I don't know what to fucking do. And in the end I was like, I'm gonna go back to England because my name means something there more. It's probably easier for me to get a job.
Fair.
So I went back, and I ended up falling into like education and teaching.
Were you working at a school?
At first, no, I was doing like working for like a charity, teaching kids how to record music.
That actually sounds pretty cool.
It was fun. It was challenging.
I'm sure it was.
Super challenging, especially going from the touring life to that. And it's just like, this is hard.
You're going from literally a giant locomotive train going through the world to now you're waking up at the same spot every day.
Yeah.
Not that you didn't have breaks in Gallows, but like it's a totally different mindset.
You have to reinvent yourself.
Sure.
In a way that
Who am I now?
Who am I now? And also like, am I more than that? Like,
that doesn't define you.
Yeah. But then like you rebel against it even further.
Of course you do.
To be like, no, that's not me. I'm going to go out of my way to make sure people know that that's not me. And
I'm going to buy a
that.
Telecaster.
Yeah. I bought a Gretsch.
A Gretsch.
Yeah.
See, I'm more than just a Marshall and a Les Paul. I'm going to buy a Gretsch.
I bought a Gretsch. That was it.
I'm going to buy a puppy too.
I bought a Gretsch, and I bought, what else did I get? I bought a Gretsch. I had an AC30 at the time. Ooh. So I still had an AC30. But yeah, I bought the Gretsch, and I was like, right, I'm going to write some other stuff. Okay. And I started writing other music, but I was kind of like, the goal for me was I'm going to write this music, and I'd had it going in the background, and I didn't know what to do with it. And I never wanted anyone to know. I was still in Gallows when I started writing this stuff, and I was like, I don't want anyone to know about it, but I just want to release it. Obviously, when I left the band, the music media in the UK, oh, Steph's left, by the way, he's going to do this new project. And I was like, fuck, now I have to do it properly. I can't just release this music. Yeah. So I spent a lot longer working on this record that we were doing. G was singing on it with a bunch of old friends, and it was like a indie Americana record.
You guys played out a little bit though.
We played out a bit. Yeah. We toured a bit with a band. It was called the Ghost Riders in the Sky. We did that for a little bit.
That's right.
And I could never quite find the right members in the band to make it work. It was me and G, and a lot of it was more me than anyone else, because I was like, I have to prove a point to myself that I'm not just punk
You're
rock
fighting
guy.
yourself the whole time.
The whole way through.
At every level.
Every level. I was just in complete and utter crisis of like, who the fuck am I? Whilst my wife, well, my then fiance was in America waiting for her visa to come over to the UK.
Oh God.
And during this process, we were told it would take 4 weeks. So I proposed to her. She went back to the States, put all the paperwork in. We were told 4 weeks, then she'd be able to come to the UK. They had my passport, they had her passport, and neither of us could travel. It took like 8 months.
Oh my God.
So every day we were like working back and forth. So I basically had not a lot to do. So I sat in the studio making this record.
Yeah.
And just I threw everything I could at it. Like, I remember the drummer at the time, I was like, have you got a gong? Bring the gong in. Let's get the gong involved on this.
Get the gong.
And you've gone too far when the gong and a vibra slap comes out. So that was when I knew we'd gone too far. So we did it. We toured a little bit.
The flute. I think we've gone too far.
Exactly. Yeah. Trombone, anyone?
Yeah.
we did the record, we put it out, we did it independently, we played a bunch of shows, we had fun with it, but it never quite got the traction that we wanted it to. So then at the time I was like, this isn't working. G needed to have a reconstructive hip surgery.
Okay.
So she had a huge operation that took a long time for her to recover, and it put her out. So we just put the band to bed. And then we kept talking about it for ages, and we were like, is this something we want to do? Is it worth doing it again? Yeah. And then eventually we were just like, fuck it, let's just try. So I put a post out and was just like, anybody want to write some music with me? And I had a couple of people come back. I sent them some demos, and one guy, a guy called Dan, we had this song, we didn't know what to do with it, sent it to him, and he sent it back, and we were like, fuck, that's what the song needed. So then we started Lioness. And again, it was me and G. We had a couple of good people in on it. Simon, who you know from Seattle as well. Yep. Simon played bass on it. And we just had a really good time doing like a fucking kind of like a stoner rock type thing.
Yeah, to me it really felt like you guys were having the fun factor was much higher with that than Ghost Riders and this guy.
The Ghost Riders thing was not fun.
Yeah.
At all.
I kind of got that vibe.
Ghost Riders was like trying to be a serious band whilst trying to rebel against everything I'd done before, whilst trying to prove a point to myself. I was just a fucking mess making that record.
Yeah.
Whereas in the Lioness stuff, I was like, I'm happy as fuck.
So you do the Lioness stuff. You guys put out, was it a full length?
We did a bunch of singles and an EP.
Okay. How does and you're still doing your educational thing?
Yeah, at that point, I was in a role for a collection of colleges.
Okay.
Where my role was like curriculum development.
Okay.
So my job, basically, I created a job for myself, and I got someone to pay me to do it, which is great. And the job was, no one knows what Steph does, but when he needs to deliver on something, he does.
Okay.
That was my job.
Where does Marshall come into the picture? Now, you mentioned earlier that you had played and toured with Marshalls, and you obviously knew AR rep Joel.
Yeah.
Shout out to Joel.
Joel's the guy.
And how do you start growing a relationship with Marshall and eventually working at Marshall?
So the guy, when I started doing the youth worky type stuff for the charity thing in the recording studio, I worked with a guy called Adam.
Okay.
Adam is the studio manager at Marshall. So Adam gets a job as a studio manager at Marshall and gives me a phone call one day and says, I got this job. Can we chat Pro Tools? I was like, yeah, sure. So he'd been out of the game for a little while, not long. And he was like, I just want to come back and get into it. I know all the stuff you've been doing. You built these studios at the college. Can I just come and spend some time just like doing a re-up? I was like, sure. So he came in, did some bits, and then he called me and just said, I've got a week to put the studio together. I was told I had 6 months. I've now got a week to put the studio together before the first band is in recording. Can you come help? Like, I just wanted to give you an opportunity. You've done so much for me with this. Like, you up for it? I was like, fuck it. Of course I am. So I went in. I was like the Pro Tools guy. So I was helping the desk talk to Pro Tools and the rest of it. Because I'd done like Pro Tools certification training courses and stuff. And while I was there, I met at the time, the commercial director. And we just hit it off.
He was just like, hey man, you want a job?
Kind of. Yeah.
More or less?
More or less. He was just like, so education and you've been in a band. I was like, yeah. And he's like, cool. I want the company to have education. I was like, all right, what do you want? And he went, come and use the studio, do whatever you want to do, charge whatever you want to charge, take all the money. And I was like, right. And he went, and as long as people enjoy it, like consultancy type thing. And I was like, what do you mean? This doesn't make any sense to me. And I was like, how about I don't charge anything. We just do it for free. And we just let people come and do their thing. Eventually we worked a middle ground that he was happy with and I was happy with. And I did 4 consultancy education things for them. I did like a recording 101, an advanced recording, a live sound 101, and I did like an introduction to the music industry where I got a bunch of friends. Lags from Gallows came on it.
I remember that.
And that
was cool.
Yeah, I did like a day of here's people on the stage. Now's your opportunity to ask them whatever the fuck you want to ask them. No questions are stupid questions. Just ask them. So I did these 4 sessions. I did the first one, and G came and sat in the audience on the first one because I was like, I don't know if anyone's going to come. I don't know what this is going to be like. So she was like, I'll come. I'll sit in the audience for you and I'll ask some questions. And I was like,
great.
This is why I love you. You're the best. So she did it. And then afterwards, Alex, the commercial director at the time, was there. He came over to see how the whole day went. And G was there, and she went up to him and she went, what did you think of what Steph's done? He's like, we love it. This is amazing. She went, when are you going to give my husband a job then?
Damn, that sounds so, I can literally hear her saying that.
Yeah. And she was like, I'm American. I can do what I want. So she asked the question. And then a couple of weeks later, there was a big charity thing at Marshall, and I just got an email and it was like, what's it going to take for you to come on board? So I said, here's what I'm up for. Like, can we make this work? I came back to do my final 2 sessions, and in the final one, he came over and was just like, offers on the table, when can you start? So I joined the company as like running education for the company, next generation support. What can we do to get more people into playing Marshall?
Did you ever have a pinch yourself moment of like, I fucking work for Marshall amps?
I have that every day.
Bro.
Like every time, when I'm on site, every time you have a shit day, you just walk into the museum, number one's in a fucking glass case, and you go, okay, said to myself, this is it. This is the shit. This is what I'm here for. Like, nothing else matters. So I did the head of education thing for a little while. Then our marketing director went on maternity, so I took over for her as like the acting head of marketing for 6 months. Then she comes back. I've transitioned into like a senior role in the company where I was working with people on more of a decision making level. Did a lot with the R&D team on new products. I kind of just got about a bit and did a bit of everything for the company. Supported the studio team on like mixing stuff and working with them. And then the acquisition. So Sound Industries, which were the company that makes Marshall headphones, purchased the amplifier company, and we created the Marshall Group. And at that point, there was a whole new energy leashed into the company that was like, what do we want to do to move this company as one forward? Well, okay, this is cool. There's loads of stuff going on. And they eventually they were like, we've got a new role that we're looking at. They were like, what do you think about this role? And at the time I was like, yeah, sounds cool. And they were like, no, what do you think about this role? And I was like, yeah, it sounds cool. He was like, you're not getting this. What do you? And I was like, oh. I was like, fuck yeah. So I'm now the director of culture marketing for the company. And my remit for the company looks after endorsers, AR, partnerships, education, community support, work we do with independent venues and festivals. And then I also work on like the marketing for the amp side of the business.
I was going to say, all that kind of sounds like you're rubbing up against marketing in a good way. I mean, like, but there's kind of like some intersect.
What I do, the way I say it to people is I look after what we do for musicians.
That's a great way to put that. I get that. Okay.
And anything that is musician related, I support or I drive.
Okay.
Which is great.
That's awesome.
Yeah, because like I am one.
Of course.
I'm our target audience.
Do you think, so for me and a lot of the opportunities that I get to work with companies, a lot of that is driven by the fact that I have played standing up and I've toured and I've done the hard things that not a lot of people get to do. Do you think your perspective, or their perspective rather, of you was influenced by the amount of touring and the fact that you were also not only a touring musician, but you were a martial artist?
Like, yeah, I still am.
You were.
I think I'm the only one
You
at
were
the
the Marshall
company,
guy,
who's
right?
endorsed by Marshall and works there. So yeah, like I think so.
Yeah.
And like it adds a level of authenticity.
Yeah, I agree.
To the company, if like the company has musicians helping to drive it forward.
Well, and
not
again-
everyone needs to be a musician. Definitely.
Again, no one was playing like your Marshalls were very prominently, whether it was on purpose or not, in the music videos.
Oh, dude, I was so proud to stand in front of that band.
Of course you were.
Because it's like you grow up watching all these bands. Oasis had Marshalls. They had valve states. My first ever Marshall was valve state, 8100, VS100, head and cap.
We're not going to talk about my first Marshall valve state. We won't talk about that.
Okay. So that was my first one. Oasis had one. Then it was the 412s, B cabs, because that's what Steph Carter had. So I was a B cab guy. Still am a B cab guy now.
Yes.
And then I just had a crazy collection of different heads over my time. 2 have stayed in my rig for like the long haul. 76, 2204, 77, 2203. And those guys have been in there for ages. But yeah, I was so proud to play that stuff because you watch your favorite bands play this shit and then you get to stand in front of it as well. And it's like being in it's like a club that you get to be in that no one talks about, but you just know. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. That makes all of the sense.
Yeah.
That's incredible, man.
Yeah.
You have officially survived the music industry.
I'm now a retired musician, is what I call it. Completed
You're
it, mate.
still a musician.
I'm still a musician. I don't think you can ever get out of it. If you're in it,
If you're a lifer, you're a lifer, right?
if you're in it, you're in it. Like, and even those who get out of it, they still play. They're still in it. You just do it in a different way. And now I get to be the guy that helps the next generation of players to play. And also I get to help the company. Like, we're at a point now for Marshall Group where we're fucking setting up for the next 60 years. That's a very privileged position to be in at any company, especially one I love.
Even outside of the music industry, that's incredible.
Yeah, I'm very lucky.
Yeah.
I've lived a very, very lucky life.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Dude. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
I don't want to take up too much of your time. You have a show to go to, which is incredible. I'm actually going to the show too. We actually have to go to a show, guys. Thank you so much for stopping by. And I guess let's go to the show.
Let's go to the show and then let's do some fun stuff with Marshall.
We will do some fun stuff with Marshall. All right, guys. See ya.